It's go time.
Welcome to Quick Kicks here on Third Down Gamble with your hosts, Don Charbin and Heath Graham.
Glad you could be back with us on the podcast. It's Don Charbin along with Heath Graham as we go into what is about to be the CFL Combine, and then we move towards the draft. The league has still not come up with a new commissioner. Randy Ambrosie is still running the show, as it were. He said he would until such time as. Do you think now that the time is starting to run out on getting a commissioner prior to training camp, or is that even a concern?
It would be in the best interest of the CFL to have somebody in place prior to the preseason and training camps. I don't know where the CFL is on their journey as far as candidates that they've interviewed or that they're looking at. It's been pretty quiet on that front. And Three Down Nation had an article by Justin Dunk talking about the compensation of the commissioner and how the position is maybe underpaid in its current iteration, and that to really attract top talent, they might need to look at upping that bottom line a little bit.
The other tenet that Justin refers to in his article is if you're going to hire somebody, you've got to give them some clout. And one of the things that the CFL struggles with is having a really strong commissioner that can basically run with the show. They all try in their different ways. Mark Cohen, I would argue, is probably the best at what he could accomplish with the league because he had a very intimate understanding of how to work with an ownership group. The CFL, by its nature, there's only 9 governors. If any 3 to 4 get upset about something, it's not like in the NFL where any 3 or 4 get upset about something, and that's 4 of 32. Here it's 4 of 9. You're 1 vote away from losing the confidence of the board. That is I think in principle, it's the biggest problem that any commissioner faces.
The challenge is to find the sweet spot in a board. You can have too few members and you can have way too many. And when you've got too many, it's tough to know who you answer to and what direction to go. 9 does leave it a little bit tight. It is an odd number, so there is a 5-4 vote on anything that is close, which is beneficial. You don't get things deadlocked. But you're right. If there's issues, and it sounds like there was a few teams that felt that Randy Ambrosie was past his prime and started to angle towards looking for a new commissioner. Ambrosie stepped aside, probably coerced a little bit into doing so, but he has been successful in a lot of things in the CFL. There are detractors and there are mistakes he made along the way. But I do appreciate his willingness to stay in that position until the league is comfortable that they have found their replacement, whomever that may be.
He had lost the confidence of the board last fall. But I would argue that if you're in a bigger league like the NFL, the NHL, where Bettman has been around since 1993, the odds of you surviving are much greater because, again, if you get into trouble with just a small minority, 4 to 5 people, there's still another 20 to 25 that could side with you or not want to put this to anything more than just some angst between you and the commissioner and you guys figure it out for yourselves. Look at Jerry Jones in the NFL, how strong a voice he's been, how active he's been, but yet Roger Goodell has been there since 2006.
A staggering stat in this article was that since 2014, there have been 5 CFL commissioners, including some interim executives. But you look at an 11-year period now with 5 different people at the helm. It makes Randy Ambrosie's tenure look pretty lengthy in that regard because he was around for a big chunk of that. As you mentioned, other leagues have had commissioners that have been around for a long time. Gary Bettman, now over 30 years. Don Garber of Major League Soccer, 25 plus years. Roger Goodell has been there for almost 20 now as well. So a lot of longevity in those positions. It makes you question why it is so difficult to find somebody for the CFL that can last as long as they do. And you talked about it exactly, that the small number of of presidents of organizations sitting on that board makes it fairly easy to lose the confidence of that board.
It seems as though in the CFL that ever since Jake Goddard left the commissionership all those years ago, that it's been not a revolving door, but almost akin to more changes than you would think would be normal in a circumstance such as this. Now, Jake Goddard ran the league for close to 20 years, and he ruled very strongly, and I use ruled as lightly as I can. But he had a very strong personality. He knew how to read the room. He could make things happen. You move forward throughout the interim era, and you've had such a difference of personalities that the CFL seems to be always trying to find itself with that next commissioner. And again, I will point to Mark Gohan, who at the time he was the right person for the job. I don't think he'll be available this time, although they could talk him out of his current position that he's holding. But if he would come back, he was popular with the fans, popular with the owners, and the league grew exponentially.
I am excited to see who the next commissioner is going to be, and maybe it's somebody completely outside of the league. I know when Ambrosi announced he was stepping down, he was no longer going to be commissioner, a lot of names were thrown out there of former CFL players, and I'm not 100% sold on the next commissioner needing to be an ex-player. I think there are some fantastic candidates that have been thrown around there that do have those ties to the league, but a fresh face and somebody coming from a different sport or a different business altogether might give the league the new look that they're aiming towards.
You could look at, again, I'll point back to Gohan, but there's another one, Jim Hobson from the Saskatchewan Roughriders. When he was the first team president ever, he took on a totally different approach where there's me in town, things are going to be different around here, and not only that, out there, you're going to look at us a lot differently. And I remember his famous quote going into the 2009 Grey Cup playing the Montreal Alouettes. They asked, well, what do you think about going to the Grey Cup? And he said, well, I'll tell you one thing for sure. The Alouettes are not happy that they're having to face us. Turned out to be a fantastic game. That type of swagger, I think you need with the CFL. You need somebody to stand there and say, hey, we are something, and you better believe it.
Is there anybody interesting that you've spoken to recently that might be a great addition to the Third Down Gamble podcast?
Well, I've talked about Adam Rita. He will be coming up on a later episode of Third Down Gamble towards the end of the month or maybe in early April. But the other person that I happened to talk to, a fantastic interview, thoroughly enjoyed, David Naylor of TSN. He came on board. What a great person to get to meet. And I think you're going to learn a lot about him and some of the cool stories that he has to relay. So that's another episode to look forward to on our podcast. The BC Lions were forced to pay $75,000 to Alexander Hollins, receiver with the team, in an injury grievance that he had filed with the CFLPA.
The CFLPA's collective bargaining agreement stipulates that a player cannot be cut from a team, a veteran player cannot be cut from a team while injured. And the timing of the BC Lions parting ways with Alexander Hollins in January of this year, it has been determined that he was still injured at that point in time. Therefore, he has been awarded his $75,000 bonus that he was due. It leaves Hollins and the Lions in a little bit of a conundrum as to what the future is. It's essentially saying it was a wrongful dismissal. If we want to put it into terms that everyday people with regular jobs can wrap their head around, it was determined to be a wrongful dismissal on the Lions' part, and now they have to pay that penalty. Now, the chances of Hollins returning to the Lions after all this happens, I believe, is slim, but that possibility is there because they could be held essentially responsible for the remainder of his contract.
That's true, but if you've gone this route already, he would still have to pass that physical because he's claiming that he was injured when he was due his bonus and he wasn't paid it when he was released because the team had cut him prior to this bonus coming his way. So he's arguing that I'm injured, I'm a vet, you can't do this to me. He proven to be correct. But now he has to prove to the team that he's healthy. He has to go to training camp and say, look, I'm now back in shape. My knees are fine, and I'm ready to go. If he doesn't make it, it's over.
It is. And just to give people context on the numbers as well, as I mentioned, it was a $75,000 signing bonus that he is now being awarded. His original contract for 2025 was for $233,800 plus a possible $11,000 in performance bonuses as well. So that's the contract right now that the Lions are facing. Hard to think that the Lions medical team are going to give him the green light to go. I think that would be the most scrutinized physical that a player would go through coming into this training camp. I hope for Hollins' sake he does come back healthy. I just do not believe it's going to be with the BC Lions.
Well, I don't think there's any malice on part of the BC Lions when it comes to all of this because, yeah, okay, you could look at it cynically and say, well, they did this and they should have known better. In the same breath, if he's healthy and they need a receiver and he's good to go, they could let this slide under the bridge and say, okay, we're good with it. Just go out and do your job and we'll work with you as best we can. There's nothing holding the BC Lions to a certain standard where they're going to get petty and say, well, we don't want him around anymore. These types of situations happen all the time. We don't always know them. Famously, George Reed won it out of Saskatchewan in the mid-1970s, and the team managed to bring him back. So it's not unusual for these types of hiccups to happen. It's just what you do with it next. That's going to be the question.
It is, and I guess one thing that can help mend the fences, if you will, is there's a new regime in BC with the head coach and the direction of that team as well. So if Hollins does feel that there was any kind of ill will in how this all played out, now you've got some new people in place that can look to the future and not dwell on what has happened already.
Well, that's the biggest part of this whole equation is Ryan McMaden, who actually likes Hollins. He figures that he's one of the best route runners in the league, has a decision to make if this is all going to go forward. But it also falls heavily on Hollins' agent and Hollins as to what they really want to decide. Maybe this was a misunderstanding and he had to go this route to get this sorted out. Now they've got it cleared up. He's already got some of the money in hand anyway. The team now would just have to pay him the rest if he's performing. I don't see that it's an impossibility. An improbability, yes, but an impossibility, no.
On our last show, we talked a lot about Curtis Rourke and his NFL and CFL draft potential. Another Canadian quarterback has tossed his hat into the ring. Taylor Elgersma had a pro day in Buffalo showing off his wares, and he's drawing some attention from the NFL as well. A student of Wilfrid Laurier University, he's declared himself draft eligible this year. How is his stock proceeding in the NFL, and do you think it's a better shot that he ends up in the CFL as well? If he does, we're possibly looking at 3 or 4 Canadian starters in the CFL.
Answering your first question about the NFL, he had a great pro day. So he did what he wanted, and he got some looks. That's what you ask for. You want somebody to notice you. The problem for him is that he is coming out of a Canadian college, and especially at quarterback. Though they have been drafted in the NFL, no one has really had a career in the NFL. He has a chance. He has the size, he has the mechanics, and he has the arm strength. Is the NFL ready to take a flyer on him? And that's the way they're going to look at it, because they don't see, and it's their loss, U Sports football the same way they see NCAA. That is always going to be a mark against you, regardless of how this happens. U Sports football is fantastic. The type of athlete that comes out of there is amazing. And there's a bunch of U Sport players in the NFL. They just don't happen to be quarterbacks.
That's the biggest thing is the quarterback. And you mentioned his size. He's listed at 6'5", 227 pounds. That is pretty much a perfect model of what the NFL looks for in a quarterback. It's the fact that he's coming from a U Sport school, a little bit unknown to those in the NFL. He may get drafted. If he does, I'm assuming it's going to be somewhere late round. He might go undrafted, have a team sign him to an undrafted free agent contract to attend a camp and see where he develops from there. As good as he is and as much as he showed in that pro day, he's got a few things working against him that is not going to get him drafted as high as quarterbacks that he is at least as athletic as, if not more so.
A huge part of the NFL draft is who you know and who you trust. He's coming out of Wilfrid Laurier. I'm sure many NFL teams don't even know where that is. The odds are that he's not going to be picked on day one. If he can land somewhere in the draft in that second day, then he's got an opportunity to really cement himself with a great opportunity. Somebody take a chance and say, he's worth it to me. Otherwise, most likely, and this is what the speculation is, even with Curtis Rourke, is that if by some circumstance no draft pick comes his way, there's going to be a free agent offering somewhere. But if he doesn't get drafted, yes, he can go free agent and get a tryout with any one of the teams that are out there. We talked about Curtis Rourke last week. If he falls to day 2 and doesn't get drafted, let's say on day 2, it's the same sort of option for him. Now, you're getting to a bigger question. What do you do if you're the CFL? Well, the Stampeders, for instance, may have 3 picks in the first 9 if they don't trade anything away. And if all this speculation about BC losing a draft pick comes to pass, they have a great opportunity to draft one of them. Then you look at a team that maybe doesn't need a quarterback right now, but isn't looking for anything else. They don't need offensive line. They don't need a great receiver or running back. They're pretty well stocked. Then you can take that as a development shot and say, hey, let's get this guy. We may not be able to play him for a year or 2, but at least we got him.
I get the feeling that Elgersma may run into a situation where he's signed as a undrafted free agent with an NFL team, but how much of a fair shake is he going to get at camp? Are they bringing him in just to be that extra body and get those numbers up? We saw with Nathan Rourke getting an opportunity in Jacksonville. He had some highlight reel plays in preseason games. There were some ups and downs to what he showed there, but really didn't get an opportunity to compete for those roster spots. And I'm not sure that Curtis Rourke or Taylor Elgersma get anything more than that. I would give the advantage to Curtis Rourke just because he's played in the NCAA. He carried his team into the playoffs in college football in the U.S. as well. So there's a little bit more pedigree there. But as I said earlier, there's a great opportunity to have almost half the CFL teams with starting Canadian quarterbacks within the next 2 or 3 years.
It would be great for the CFL if that could happen. Again, the NFL, because of the size of the roster and especially the size of the practice roster, it makes it tough to get these guys young in their career. You find so often that when players come back here, they're 26, 27, which doesn't mean they're over the hill. Their career now has been shunted a little bit by that because it's a little bit shorter than what it could have been had they been here from the start. Nathan Rourke, of course, started pretty much right out of college with the BC Lions. If Curtis Rourke or Taylor Elgersma can do the same thing, Canadian or not, they may have a career in the CFL as a great quarterback. That's what you want, right? You want the opportunity to play and to succeed.
Hey, George Hopkins, Calgary Stampeders Equipment Manager. You're listening to the Third Down Podcast. Enjoy it. I do.
Interesting story coming out of the United States where, and I'm sure if anyone is of our ilk, Mark Gastineau means something to you as a player. He had a great career with the New York Jets, was fierce competitor, played part of a year with the BC Lions in the CFL, but now he's in a lawsuit against ESPN for a viral Brett Favre clip.
He is, and to give you the context of this, at one time, Mark Gastineau held the NFL record for most sacks in a single season. There was a famous play in the last game of the season between the New York Giants and the Green Bay Packers where it appears that Brett Favre maybe didn't give 100% effort on the play, allowing Michael Strahan to get the sack and break Gastineau's record. There's some viral video of Gastineau confronting Brett Favre at a publicity event, and that is what the whole work around this lawsuit is coming down to.
It comes down to rights of the person being filmed at the time. He did not consent to this being used by ESPN in their presentation that showed up, And that's where the crux of this really comes down to. Yes, he's upset over what happened and how he lost his sack record in the NFL. Secondarily, and probably more significant in this court case, is that he's claiming you didn't ask my permission, nor did I sign a waiver to allow you to use this.
He did, and it's a $25 million lawsuit, so it's not insignificant, the amount of dollars that we're talking about here. It's certainly a case to keep an eye on, and unfortunately, it seems that there's a lot of litigation that happens in the U.S., maybe unnecessarily. This is a situation, I understand it. It's Mark Gastineau's reputation. It's his legacy on the line, and he does not want to see it tarnished in this way. I would not be surprised to see a settlement out of court where this whole thing just kind of goes away, but we'll see if this does carry through and see the light of day in a courtroom.
Well, the interesting thing, too, for Gastineau, and I think you go back to maybe 2015, 2016, when he announces that he's picking up the first forms of dementia, that is starting to appear. And he's picked up a string of other things that have followed. It's a malady stream that has afflicted him since he played football. You know that his medical bills are going to be significant over all of this. I imagine that somebody else has to be taking the lead in terms of all of this, that there's a representation on his behalf. And you just hope for whatever comes of this, that this is settled in an appropriate manner.
Sticking with NFL news, Canadian outside linebacker Michael Hecht has been suspended 6 games by the NFL for performance-enhancing drug violation. This will not allow him to make his debut. This will not allow him to make his debut with the Buffalo Bills until 6 games have passed in the regular season. This is yet another case where the player is claiming tainted supplements as the cause for the suspension, for the positive test, and we'll see how this one plays out.
This goes back to, of course, Andrew Harris and the situation that happened to him not that many years ago in the Canadian Football League. I don't know what they do in the NFL, but in the CFL, there's a list. If you follow that list, you're good. But as soon as you stray, you go to a pharmacy and you stray off that list, then you're taking chances. Hecht is probably arguing that he did not knowingly do this, or if he did get it, it was mixed in with something that he was allowed to take. And that's going to be his defense. The question is, I don't know how you figure this out other than going into the actual sample itself.
I will give Hecht credit. He is not denying this positive test. He's taking ownership of it, saying that he has nobody to be mad at by himself and that he got complacent. So I do appreciate him taking ownership of this positive sample. Again, I just cannot believe that we continue to go down this road of players of this caliber and at this level of professionalism putting their careers at risk by not being 100% sure that anything that you're ingesting is approved as safe by the league that is paying your bills.
That's probably the biggest concern for anybody that's getting into professional sport is pay attention to what you're told. I'm not saying that Hecht did anything wrong, whatever the case may be, but somehow that sample appeared. You've got to be so careful because you're talking millions here. This is not, especially in the NFL, this is not anything to trifle with. This is life-changing money that could be going out the door. Be careful with your consumption. Exactly.
And Hecht's contract with the Buffalo Bills was a 3-year deal for $24 million. So his loss of 6 games is well over $1 million in penalty to him. That's a fairly significant chunk of change.
You're exposed to a million different things. You just got to be so careful. Now we'll see. Did it all flop? Did the test actually screw up? We'll have to find out. We just don't know. But in the interim, it's just the way of the world. When you're accused, that almost is as damaging as anything.
Third down.
The Calgary Stampeders have done something a little bit different here with tying them to the Calgary Stampede. We know that the two are closely linked, not only by the fact that their names are very close, but also the fact that the stadium isn't actually that far from the Calgary Stampede. Interesting that at this point in time, with the Stampede going on, that the Stampeders are now bringing out a logo to reflect that relationship.
I think it's a great move, and it's tying into the July 3rd game of the Calgary Stampeders, which is during Stampede Week. The Argos often have a home game during CNE, the big exhibition in Toronto. An admission to CNE would give you a game ticket as well, so that one is always a big boost for the Argonauts for their home attendance, and it's great to see the Stampeders being able to take advantage of something very similar and just bring back awareness to their tie-in to the Stampede, to the city of Calgary, and I expect this to be a big boost for them for that home game.
The team typically, I may be wrong in stating this, but the team typically isn't at home during Stampede Week because they thought they would lose their audience to the Stampede. But if you can tie it in, where if you buy a Stampede ticket and it also gets you into the Stampeders game, why not? It's a great cooperative venture, and especially given the history of the Stampeders and the Stampede, which are both long-standing entities in Calgary. They've been there, each one for over 70 years, another for over 100 years.
So this is the Thursday night game, which are often a tougher draw in the summer. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers are in town to face the Stampeders. The Bombers do draw pretty well in Calgary as well. They're a division rival. Much like Saskatchewan, there's a lot of former Manitobans that have settled in Calgary as well. So I know several personally that generally attend those Bomber Stampeders games. This is a great opportunity to get more fans in the seats on that Thursday night. Stampede Week is long. You can wear yourself out if you're going to the same events at the Stampede every night. So it might be a nice break for some people to get some fresh air outside of the Stampede grounds and take in a football game.
And anytime you can market along with somebody else that's actually the greatest show or a greatest outdoor show on earth, why not? The Stampeders, there's nothing really to lose in all of this. And whether or not that comes about in a helmet decal, I'm not sure yet. But it would be kind of interesting to see if they go that route. The team itself, they're looking to re-engage with fans. They're trying to figure out ways to get that season ticket base up a little bit more. But more, they want that walk-up crowd to be a little bit stronger. And if you can tie into something like this, that's great. The Stampeders, who knows, at that moment in time, a couple weeks into the season, they may be the hottest thing in town if Vernon Adams Jr. is shooting the lights out.
They very well could be, and it's easy to have performers from the rodeo in the stadium on that day as well, whether it's rodeo clowns or barrel racers or something that you can really draw people in as well. It'll be a spectacle, and I would think it would be one of the better halftime performances of the season for the Stampeders as well, just because of everything that's going on in the city and the vibrancy and the excitement of Stampede Week.
Well, the Stampeders for years, and this is one of the things that I really enjoy when I'm at a game there, is they have the world's fastest cow. And if you don't know anything about this, they don't take a heifer out there and put it on the field. No, they have a person dressed up in a costume, but that person is fast. And typically he'll give a 10, 15, 20-yard head start, and you have to run the length of the field. And he'll be running backwards into the other end zone, beating just about everybody in sight. There's very few that have ever beaten the world's fastest cow.
Much like the freeze, I believe it is in Major League Baseball as well, where they give somebody a head start on the warning track and he runs them down. It's a great fan entertainment, really engaging to see, and gets people fired up.
The audience, it's a timeout on the field. You've got a moment to sort of relax and hear this cow comes out, and away you go. You have a laugh. You cheer for either the cow or the opponent. But it's just a great thing to do. And the more that you can do fun things like this and sell this. Remember, the CFL as an entity last year, it's making more money than it had been in the past. Its growth potential is there. Now that you're on the right projection that you want to follow, why not just tap it up a little bit more and see what other fun things you can do with the fans?
This ties in nicely to our next topic of conversation, and that is the opportunity there for the CFL to really drill down more of its Canadian identity. And the reason I bring this up is with the pending trade wars with the United States, there's a lot of people that are really pushing to spend their dollars in Canada and avoiding American products at the grocery stores, avoiding vacations to the US as well. This is a chance, I believe, for the CFL to draw back some of those Canadian fans that they've lost to the NFL and say, hey, we've got professional football here in Canada as well. It's a high quality, high caliber league. Here's your chance to support us.
It's something that I'm sure there's a lot of discussion about. It's one of those topics that you have to tread lightly because you don't want to come off as too bombastic. You want to be careful with how you deal with your American friends because remember, on every roster, there's 20 to 21 Americans there. They have that in their ears as well as what's going on. And coming up to Canada and having that going on in the background, they don't want to be chastised, booed just because they're American. They want to be part of this whole process. So you have to be a little careful how you approach this. If you want to play it up as shop Canadian, you don't want to get much further than that where you don't want to be anti anything. I think you want to be for whatever it is you want to be.
I agree with you. I think there's a proper way to market this and a wrong way to go about it. One good thing is that the American national anthem isn't played at CFL games. So we're seeing across many sports leagues booing of the American national anthem. I understand fans are upset. I'm not going to get into the whole situation, whether I believe it's right or wrong to boo an anthem. However, we won't have that situation arise in the CFL. And I do think it's more of a matter of supporting Canada as opposed to being anti-American. And not just the CFL. There are opportunities, I believe, for U Sport, for the CHL, Canadian Hockey League, which has 51 Canadian teams spread across Canada as well. There's minor league baseball in most major cities across Canada as well. So it's an opportunity for everybody to get reinvested in Canadian sport and see what that level is. And I know the NFL hype machine and the NCAA hype machine are juggernauts in the sports that they promote, and it's hard to pull people away from that market. But this is the chance to do it. There's a lot of people that are looking for alternatives, and this is the chance to really put our product front and center.
And I won't argue that the CFL needs to do more in terms of marketing itself to Canadians, and whether that's being Canadian. We think back to the mid-1990s when they started expanding to the States, and what was the marketing ploy? Radically Canadian, our balls are bigger. The league can play up that side of it. It's just you want to be a little bit sensitive to the other people that are involved. We got American coaches, American GMs, we've got American players, quarterbacks. You don't want to get too far along, but if you bring them along for the ride, make it fun, make it a positive experience. Like shopping Canadian means more people at the game, more fun for everybody. Why not? I don't see a problem with it. I don't know why they're not doing it in the first place, whether or not there's all these other issues. The league itself needs to be better at presenting the game to Canadians as a unique event, as a unique way to play football. And look, we've got Canadian content on that field. Why not promote that?
I like the fact that you brought up the more we engage Canadian fans, the better the product is, the better the support is. I think that's a big sell for American players as well, to put them at ease a little bit. Is yes, we're branding this as a Canadian product. We're doing this to increase revenues. It will overall increase the pool of money that American players are able to come up here to earn as well. So it can be a real positive spin for them to take part in the second biggest professional football league in the world. And it's just across the border from where they grew up playing, and it's a great chance to promote it.
Third Down Gamble uses the expert resources of the Canadian Football League and 3 Down Nation. For up-to-date, insightful statistics and analysis, please visit cfl.ca and 3downnation.com. The CFL on CBC theme music is used with written permission from the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation.
Thank you for listening to our show. Third Down Gamble is hosted on Podbean. Follow us on Twitter, where our handle is @ThirdDownGamble. Join us again next time. The Third Down Gamble podcast. Audio worth watching.